Welcome to Get Paid for Your Pad, the definitive show on Airbnb hosting, featuring the best advice on how to maximize profits from your Airbnb listing, as well as real-life experiences from Airbnb hosts all over the world. Welcome. We are your hosts, Josefa Kapadia and Jasper Rivers.
Get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.
Hey everybody, welcome back to episode number 40 of Get Paid for Your Pad. Today I am here with Jodie, and Jodie is all the way from Australia. Welcome to the show, Jodie.
Thanks, Jasper. It's great to be on air with you.
Yeah, we actually met last weekend at the Airbnb Open in San Francisco, which, as you probably know, is the biggest Airbnb event in the world. There was like 1,500 hosts, and it was a great event. How was your experience at Airbnb Open, Jodie?
It was fantastic. My partner Rob and I decided as soon as it was announced to jump online and register as soon as we could, because we knew it'd be just an awesome opportunity to network with other hosts from around the world, meet people from the Airbnb headquarters in San Francisco, and get inspiration and ideas and new perspectives, and it certainly met all of those objectives. It was just fantastic.
I heard it was pretty tough to register for the event because there were so many people who wanted to go, and apparently it was sold out in 4 hours. Did you guys know exactly when the registration opened up, and were you just really quick to register?
Yeah, the information that came out from Airbnb indicated when registrations would be open online, and I figured it's going to be really, really popular. So I felt, pardon me, I felt a bit funny because I actually stayed up till 12 midnight to register. So it was almost a little bit like trying to win tickets on the radio for a concert or something. I was just desperate to try and register. So we registered and as you said, it did fill up really, really quickly. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who wanted to go and couldn't, but hoping next year there'll be more capacity. Right.
And next year it's going to be in Paris, which they announced as well. So that'll be fun.
Absolutely.
So Jodie, how long have you been hosting on Airbnb?
Well, originally I started having guests come and stay in my guest room in Melbourne just on an ad hoc basis, and I met them through other websites or through networks and friends. But I formally started hosting with Airbnb in February of this year, of 2014, and it really came around because I was moving in with my boyfriend, with Rob, and I decided to rent out my whole apartment. And the Airbnb platform provides such great, seamless ability for both the guests and the host to transact in a safe way. And I really enjoy the whole idea of not just opening up my home, but opening up my experiences and making people feel welcome. So it felt very natural for me to go with that platform.
And your apartment is in Melbourne?
That's right. So I have a really great 2-bedroom apartment, and whenever I check guests in, they often say, oh, surely you couldn't leave this, and, it's so awesome, it has beautiful views, but I get such a thrill about other people enjoying it that it makes it really worthwhile.
Right. And is it in the center of town, or is it in a suburb?
Well, Melbourne is quite densely populated, so the central business area is about 10 minutes away by tram from my apartment. So the apartment's located on St Kilda Road, which is a beautiful boulevard with beautiful trees that overlooks gardens. And in fact, from my apartment, you can see the tennis centre where the Australian Open's held, and right through over the parklands and city views. And it's actually fantastic at New Year's because you get to see the great fireworks as well.
Mm-hmm. And did everything go as planned from the start? Did you immediately get lots of bookings, or did it take a little while for things to get started?
Well, I think it actually took off a lot more quickly than I thought it would. My background's in the tourism industry, so I think that was very helpful about being mindful about the sort of things that guests expect. So I spent quite a lot of time with in the planning and thinking about making sure that the apartment has all the things that somebody needs. It was sort of a bit easier because it was already furnished, but I think it's really important for hosts to consider everything through the eyes of their guests, and not just removing personal belongings which might be perceived as clutter, but thinking about the sort of things that people need. And I think in our listing, we made sure that we include quite detailed information. So, for example, if you're travelling from Rio or somewhere from around the world, you don't want to be lugging your hairdryer. So we make sure people are aware of the facilities and the features of the apartment so that they know what to expect. We've been really, really delighted with the bookings, and we've had great experiences with our guests.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's really a good idea to put yourself in the position of the guest, of the traveler, and just walk into your own apartment and just think, what would I need if I was traveling and I just had a suitcase of clothes with me? And hairdryer is definitely very essential. It's something that I've learned the hard way.
Does that mean you didn't have one in your apartment, or?
No, being a guy, I didn't really use a hairdryer that much. So when I had my first female guest, it was the first thing that I learned.
Oh, I see. Well, the other things we learnt early on putting our listing on Airbnb was the importance of having amazing photography. And Airbnb offer that as a service, as you know,
Right.
to hosts. And we took advantage of that. And my partner, Rob, also is a great photographer. So what we did, we sort of blended a range of photos, but not just of the interior of the property, of the apartment. So I think it's really important for guests to get a sense of the neighbourhood. So we took photos of outside. So, for example, just downstairs, there's 2 bike share pods where you can borrow a bike, and it's a really cheap cost. And there's trams, there's convenience store, there's a bottle shop across the road. So those sort of local amenities we've included in our photos, and I think the guests have got a really good sense of what's in the neighbourhood.
Yeah, that's definitely a good idea. I recently added a screenshot of a speed test that I did for my internet, because I got somebody asking how fast the internet was. So I figured instead of writing in my description the speed, I figured I'd just go to speedtest.net. I just run the speed test, and then I took a screenshot and I just added it to my picture so people can actually see exactly how fast the internet is.
Great idea. I'm going to do that straight away, because that is a question a lot of people ask. And a lot of people also ask about the size of the rooms, and I couldn't understand why that was, but I guess people, particularly from cultures where the apartments are really, really small, are wanting to sort of make sure that they're having sufficient space. So, thanks for that suggestion, Jasper. I'm going to do that.
Yeah, some people are pretty particular about the internet speed, and this is something that I can appreciate because I pretty much depend on the internet wherever I go. So I also want to know for sure that the internet's fast when I'm staying at an Airbnb place.
It's interesting you say that, because I went to stay at an Airbnb in Perth recently, and on their listing it included internet, and I thought, oh, that's great. Like you, I travel a lot, it's important for me to be online. And when I arrived, the host had a little post-it note on a small dongle, the portable device, and said, if you want internet, you need to pay with your credit card online. And I just rang her and I said, that's not offering internet, that's a big pain in the butt.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for hosts to be mindful about the convenience and sort of being upfront about things like that.
Oh, absolutely. Your listing just needs to be a very accurate representation of your space. And if anything, you want to under promise and over deliver, right? Because people base their expectations on your listing. So if you go beyond, if it's better than what you state on your listing, then people are going to be really happy, and that's going to lead to those 5-star reviews.
That's right, and I think the reviews are such an essential part of the Airbnb platform and community. I mean, it gives hosts the opportunity to have an insight in the way that guests behave and will treat their home, but it also helps guests make those decisions because obviously there's lots of choices around, but so many guests are looking for more than just a bed. They're looking for an experience of a local community and sort of belonging. So. Yeah, and I learnt at the Airbnb Open a lot of hosts actually are very explicit with their guests about what they expect about the review, and if I'm always open to feedback, and certainly if there's any issues, I'll deal with it straight away. But I really learnt from the Airbnb Open in San Francisco that perhaps there's an opportunity to be a bit more direct with guests about why it's important for them to give that review.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I noticed in your profile, when you're listing, you wrote quite a bit of content on your profile, the story about yourself. Did you think about doing that? Did you do that intentionally, or?
Yes, I did. I did it intentionally for a couple of reasons. One is I'm very proud of the achievements I've made and the things that I'm interested in, and I wanted our guests to know that we're very open-minded and accepting, and by that I mean, guests who come from all around the world want to feel accepted and belong, and I think that's been very helpful for us in terms of attracting just a real diversity of people, and that's one of the things I really love about hosting. I mean, we've had over 50 guests just in my apartment alone, and they've been ranging from lecturers from universities right through to people for the World AIDS Conference in Melbourne in July this year, and then the Jehovah's Witness Conference where we had 70,000 Jehovah's Witnesses from all around the world in Melbourne. So I think in my profile I really tried to give people a sense of who I am so that they could feel that they'd feel comfortable with me. And even though I don't live on the property in the apartment, I think it's still part of sort of being open.
Yeah, I think it's great to have an elaborate profile, because part of the reason why people like to stay at Airbnbs is the personal experience, right? The connection that you can make with your host. And if you have a profile with a lot of information, then that increases the chance that somebody's going to read something that that person can relate to, and that I think that increases the chance of getting a booking.
I think you're right, and what I've noticed as well is that people already who've read that profile of mine have questions that they want to know about things that I've done. So, for example, I used to be the CEO of a not-for-profit organisation. So for some people that's quite interesting and they want to know more about that, or it might be relevant to their career. Yep. And I used to be a host on a travel show on the radio, and so that's a sort of opening up for conversation as well. And, and likewise with our guests, often people, especially first-time users to Airbnb, have very minimal information on their profile. In fact, they might only have a few little bits of verification of information. I'm not so concerned if they don't have reviews, because ultimately we all have to start somewhere. And but what I do suggest to people is that firstly they must have a photo of themselves. I think that's really important so that you know who's turning up at your home. And then secondly, that they need to also ask their friends or family or even work colleagues for a reference. That helps give a bit of a sense of the person and who they are. Absolutely,
yeah. I notice you always respond to every single review. Even
I do.
Even if it's positive. Well, I think you only have positive reviews, so...
Yeah, I do. And the reason I think that's important is, firstly, I really appreciate guests taking the time to review their experience of staying at my place. And secondly, I think it does show I guess, a level of attention. And I think otherwise things could be left just sort of hanging. So I like to sort of acknowledge what people have said. And there's always great things you can learn. And sometimes people will put that in their written review. Sometimes they'll put it as private feedback, or sometimes, I certainly welcome them to let me know just over the phone or face to face. And some of the things you learn are just really helpful about things that can be improved. So, for example, one guest recently asked for some international power adapters. Now, I already travel with those myself, and I thought most people would do that themselves. But, that was a good suggestion, so I've put those into the apartment.
Yeah, that's great. That's definitely something that's very, very useful.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think it's great that you respond to all the reviews. It's funny. I used to do some SEO, some search engine optimization, and I was helping some hotels get more traffic, get more guests. And what I noticed is on TripAdvisor, you can leave a reply when somebody reviews your place, right? And I noticed that hotels never responded to any reviews, even bad ones, and that's really bad, I think, because it really shows that you're taking your your hospitality serious if you respond to reviews, whether they're bad or good. And
I agree completely.
yeah, and it's like and if you do get a bad review, I mean, if you have, let's say you have over 100 guests, 100 reviews or something, and there's one bad one, I think everybody understands that there's always that one person who's going to complain, right? So if you respond to that bad review in a polite and professional way, it may actually improve your image as a host. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think you're right, Jasper, because there are different personal perspectives sometimes that things influence the way that people respond. I think the thing about travel is that people are often out of their own comfort or comfort zone, and not all travel is for leisure. So by that I mean, sometimes people are travelling for very profound personal reasons, and sometimes people feel quite vulnerable. Sometimes they might actually be undergoing quite an enormous personal change. They might be relocating for work. They might be having, relationship challenges. And I think, as a host, we have to sort of bear in mind that people who travel aren't always in a really good place personally. So I think there's a distinction between what are the things that happened and that could be improved and that people can learn from as a host, and then what else is happening for people is on a very personal and individual level. And I always keep that in mind because some of our guests are staying before they're moving overseas, for example, and they're saying goodbye to friends and family, and there's lots happening for them. So as a host, it's really important to reach out and provide support. And I don't mean as a counsellor, I don't mean overstepping boundaries, but
Right.
just as a sort of genuine care and friendship to help people at a time when they're going through quite a lot of stuff.
How do you manage your property, by the way? Do you check in all the guests yourself, and how do you manage the cleaning and the check-in, check-outs?
Well, initially I managed the check-ins and check-outs myself, and that was when I was working full-time with employment for a not-for-profit organisation, and that was quite difficult because I sort of had to try and juggle that and fit that around my schedule at work and just still try and meet the guest needs. But throughout this year I've made a number of changes, and Airbnb's helped me identify really what's important to me, and I've made some decisions such as leaving my full-time job. And so I do consulting work in the not-for-profit sector, and my partner and I have set up our business called Guest Ready, and we actually help hosts manage their properties and help them be the best hosts that they can be to deliver the best experiences for guests. So when we made those decisions, we then identified that, well, we can't be everywhere all at once, especially when we travel. So we've identified a couple of key people who've got great interpersonal skills. They're really reliable, and they're really good at time management, and they are well travelled as well. So they've had a lot of experience working with people from different cultures. So at the moment, really in the last sort of 6 months, we've done the majority of the check-ins ourselves, which I really enjoy. And we do have a team of people who can help out as well. So they know the properties intimately. We're managing 4 at the moment. They know how everything works, and they're really resourceful. And they know and love Melbourne. So when our guests ask particular questions, they know how to help them with that. And with the cleaning, I've never been a fan of cleaning. I mean, I've always kept my apartment really clean, but I'd much rather spend my time doing more fun things. So I've had a cleaner come in the past, but now, certainly since February this year, I've had a cleaner who looks after the whole apartment, everything from changing the linen to everything clean in the apartment, and it's working out really well. And so now, she works across all 4 properties, and it's a great thing for her and for us.
And those people that help you with the check-ins, how do you compensate them?
Well, they're all self-employed, and they've got other activities underway. And what we do is we pay them for the check-in on a flat rate. So sometimes what happens with guests is that they're, delayed because their flight's been delayed or something. And we made a decision with our team to, instead of just charging hourly rates that keep going and going, perhaps, is to be more flexible about it. And in return, that means that we give them work on a regular basis, and they're loyal to us, and it works out well. But we've also set some really good communication protocols with our guests, so that they're really clear and they understand about the check-in process. So these are apartments, so people can't just check themselves in with a keypad on the outside. So we make sure that we communicate with the guests at least 2 weeks prior to their arrival, so that they understand that we're going to be at the apartment at a certain time, and that when they arrive in Melbourne Airport, they SMS us or they use WhatsApp, something like that, when they've got Wi-Fi, and they communicate with us along the way. So that means for our check-in staff or for us, we're not sitting around waiting for a whole bunch of time.
Sounds like a pretty good system.
Yes, it works really well, and I think that as you'd be aware, you learn along the way. And I always ask as well what mode of transport people are using, because there's one time when a guest came from Singapore and was telling us that they would be there at a certain time, but in fact they caught the airport shuttle bus that then dropped off at about 30 hotels, and it took an extra 2 hours. So asking the guests exactly what mode of transport they're taking helps you then determine how long it's going to take. Yep,
that's something that I do as well. I also always ask for the flight number, so that you can actually check to see if the flight arrived on time.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I ask for what time the arrival of their flight is, but not their flight number.
Yeah.
And another thing that we've learnt as well, I'm a big fan of Google Calendars, and what I do is, with all the booking information from the Airbnb website, I actually put all of the check-in information in the Google Calendar. So, for example, when you sync your Airbnb calendar with Google, it only has very basic information, but what I do is copy that into a new calendar with more information about if there's children, if they need a cot, if they are here in Melbourne for a particular reason. So that helps when we're doing the check-in to sort of tailor what we're talking about specifically for the guest. And we also, if they have any special needs or requirements, so if they have disabilities and they need certain things moved around, then that helps us as well. And I share that with our cleaners and our check-in team, and that means everybody's on the same page.
Okay, yeah. That's a great idea. See, and that's how we learn from each other.
That's right, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit more about your website, Guest Ready, and the services that you offer. How did you come to start helping others with Airbnb?
Well, initially, when we started listing our own property, and it was very successful from the beginning, a number of friends were asking about how could they go about it, and we decided to really sort of channel our expertise to support other people to do it really well. We're not advocating that everybody should list their spare room or apartment or house on Airbnb. I mean, firstly, that would mean that there'd be heaps in the marketplace, and maybe too much of an oversupply. And secondly, not everybody is suited to this sort of work, whether it's in an informal way or as a business. So what we try and do is help people understand what's involved in hosting, whether you're out on site or whether you're doing it remotely, and help people make really good choices. And there's a lot of things for people to consider, and I guess the way that we look at things is a bit more of a global view, and we help people identify, firstly, is this for them? And if they're going to go ahead, then to give them the support that they need to make sure that they do it really well. Mm-hmm. So we've developed some great resources, checklists, and templates, and we've also we coach people around Australia via Skype to help them with things along the way. We're not interested necessarily in growing our portfolio of properties or listings. There are some companies who do that, and they do that really well. Mm-hmm. Where we're really interested in, and our niche is about the training and support and resources for hosts, mm-hmm. and even the issues that communities and local governments and government have in other jurisdictions to make sure that they understand the sharing economy, that they actually can adapt their way of thinking, mm-hmm. To think about the benefits and then how everybody can be living harmoniously rather than a sort of reactive approach to going over the top with lots of regulation.
And how much do you charge for managing a listing?
Well, it does differ depending on the situation. So, for example, one of our clients lives overseas and has a 2-bedroom house that he has had rented out for the last number of years, and he wanted everything from the furniture purchasing to the assembling right through to interior design, right through to putting, all the cups and crockery and everything in. So that was a sort of fixed price for our time, mm-hmm. to set up. And so we charged him for that. And then on top of that, we charged for the actual items of furniture in an itemised way. And then he also needed some work doing on the house with different tradespeople. Mm-hmm. And we project manage that. So that's sort of a bit of a different scenario. But right. Once the property is actually ready for listing, what we do is we have each time there's a booking, we charge a fee. So if we're dealing with inquiries from guests and it doesn't result in a booking, we don't charge our hosts for that. Mm-hmm. So we're very confident that we can give our people who are inquiring accurate and great information and respond to them really quickly that converts into a booking. And then secondly, we have a fee for check-in. So, for example, that's $39 for our hosts to pay for that check-in. And that enables us to either do it ourselves or we get other people to do it. And then we've got a cleaning charge, which depends on whether it's a 1, 2 or 3 mm-hmm. bedroom place.
Right. Interesting. So you charge a flat fee, because I know there's a lot of short stay management companies these days. Like I think every major city has at least 2 or 3 now, and most of them charge a percentage of the revenue. So
that's right.
It's interesting that you charge a flat fee.
Yeah, we looked at a range of different models, and we compared them. I guess our focus is on having a fee structure that's equitable for both our clients, who are sort of the hosts in a way, and for us as a business, and also not passing on those additional costs mm-hmm. to guests. So you're right, there are different ways of doing that, but we're really focusing more on the coaching side of things, and the property management side gives us great experience and insight and enables us to engage with guests, and we really enjoy that, but we're really wanting to grow the other side of things.
Yeah, I think actually it makes sense to charge a flat fee, because imagine somebody books a place for like a month, then that's not going to be a lot of work, right? Because it's just one booking. So if you charge a percentage, then you would charge quite a lot of money for just managing that one booking. But if let's say during a month you have 15 different bookings of 2 nights each, then obviously there's going to be much more work. So I think it makes sense to charge a flat fee just per check-in and per booking.
Yeah, certainly the feedback from our clients is that they just like it because it's simple.
Yeah.
And it also means we're not sort of having to vary, the invoicing all around the place. But I think the key is that it's more equitable.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. Awesome. So we're almost at the end of this interview. I have one more question for you, Jodie.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a really funny or a bad experience with Airbnb, or it could also be a good experience, but something that stand out?
Oh, certainly. Well, I just love the interaction with all of our guests. They're so interesting. I think one that really stands out was a recent guest who came from interstate to Melbourne for a month, and she had made a decision to retire. And her whole purpose for coming to Melbourne was to sort of think about what she wanted to do next. And what I really loved about meeting her was that she could see the opportunity to sort of have this space in Melbourne, an apartment on Airbnb just for her to think about what next. And we got along really well right from, even as we were corresponding via email. And when she checked in, it was great to meet her. And I would, occasionally SMS her just to make sure she was happy and fine, and everything went really well. And a friend of ours is a performer, and she had a performance at the Melbourne Fringe Festival, and I bought a sort of small booth to a number of tickets, and I thought, oh, well, who do I know who might like to come along? And I contacted our guest who was staying for the month and asked her just randomly, I've got some spare tickets, I'm going out with some friends, would you like to come? And she accepted, and she just had such a wonderful time, and we did as well. My friends loved meeting her, and we all went out for dinner afterwards. And in fact, I had to head off and do something else later that evening, but she went out further with my friends, and they went and had some more cocktails. So I just, what I loved about that experience was that, firstly, we had a really great connection, but secondly, that I felt like I could open other aspects of my personal life to her. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes people think that you have to be living in the apartment or the house as a host to provide that sort of opportunity for your guests. But in fact, I've done those sort of things a number of times with our guests, and I don't live there on site, but it still enriches their experience, and it enriches mine. So she was certainly someone who was really standout positive.
Awesome. That's a great experience. So, Jodie, just to be clear, your company helps not just people in Melbourne, right? Anyone,
that's correct.
Anyone who needs help with Airbnb, they can contact you.
That's correct. And so we have coaching services where we can help people identify what their goals are and then help them through step by step. But also some of our clients are people who are current hosts. And what I'm finding is that sometimes people get into it and they didn't realise how much work it would be, or they need some help to streamline things, mm-hmm. or their reviews might not be so good. So some of the things we can help with is to help hosts who are currently as hosts, and also for people who are making transitions in their life. So they might be planning to travel overseas, and they're trying to identify ways that they can have things running smoothly whilst they're away, and we can help them set up those really good systems and approaches.
Awesome. So for the people who are maybe interested in checking out what you have to offer, where can people look?
Yeah, they can go to our website, which is guestready.com.au, and we're also on Facebook as Guest Ready, so people can get in touch, and even if they have questions or they just want a little bit of information, we can be happy to help them, guide them in the right direction.
Great, so everybody check out this website, guestready.com.au, and I'll obviously put a link in the show notes that people can find at www.getpaidforyourpet.com/podcast. Jodie, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure to talk to you and to learn about your experience. And I hope we'll see each other again at the Paris for the Airbnb Open.
Thank you, Jasper. It's great to be on air, and thank you also for your book as well. I've read it before, and it was really helpful. And it's great to be involved. So I look forward to meeting you again.
Great. Thank you very much, Jodie. And that brings us to the end of this episode. As always, every Monday and every Thursday, there will be a new episode waiting for you. And if you want to learn more about Airbnb hosting, you can go to getpaidforyourpad.com, where you can download the first few chapters of our book, and you can we have blog posts, we have all sorts of information and resources for you. So go ahead and check it out, and we'll see you next time.
Get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.